everybody. Welcome to InPsight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you guys? Yay! Happy March. Boy, wow, have I had a super busy March. I mean, it's been a whirlwind. We just got back from Paris, France. We took my daughter over there as a graduation present. We've been talking about taking her over there for, good Lord, 8 years since she was 10, basically. She's 18 years old and she's been in a French immersion preschool when she was a little kid. And so it's been a really wonderful journey to save up all this money to go on this incredible bucket list trip. We were there for 7 days and it was pretty magnificent, you guys. It was amazing. And at the very end of this month, on March 25th, on Saturday at noon, I am doing my first ever live global channeling to the entire world, actually, of information that's going to be affecting our globe on the climate, on what's going on with world politics, on what's going on with local politics, money, all kinds of things, you guys. Really, literally, it is like the projection of what's going on for the entire planet from the angelic realm, from our elemental realm, our off-world community. I've got so many folks that are weighing in on this channeling event. It's pretty amazing. So I've got all this stuff happening, and I got super excited to do this podcast today because it's all about where we're at, and it's about the consciousness of connection. And why is that a big deal? Why is the consciousness of connection such a big deal? You know, it's one of the things when I was over in Europe that really hit me is that the Europeans, of course, have been living on top of each other for hundreds and thousands of years. And then we've got this brand new continent for the Europeans to colonize in the 1400s and 1500s and 1600s. And of course, there were already millions upon millions of human beings living here in North America when the European colonizers came over to claim this space for their king or queen. However, when we look at the sparsity of population in the United States as far as our space is concerned versus what you've got in Europe, I mean, holy buckets, I think it's over 1 million people in Paris, and that's where we was in Paris. You've got 1 million people there, and in my entire state of Montana, okay, we're the 4th largest state in the union, and we barely have over 1 million people here. So specifically when you get into the American West, you really are dealing with such a different dispersion, basically, of population. It's pretty amazing. So one of the things that I really wanted to get into here was how important it is for us to stay connected in our consciousness to one another. And, you know, I got to be straight out with you. There are so many people out there that talk about consciousness in this really, esoteric way, like we really need to focus on our consciousness going forward in life. Yeah, we do, for sure. But let's not make it sound so weird and stuffy. Consciousness is our choice to be aware and what we're aware of. And I think that sometimes the word consciousness, in my mind, gets really thrown in there with some pretty pretentious stuff. And I'm really pretentia averse, okay? I'm poser averse, I'm pretentiousness averse. I don't really see the point in it. I believe I don't see the point in it because when someone is acting in pretense, they're trying to be something, right? And they're usually trying to be something because they feel like they themselves are not enough. So they're trying to be this thing for themselves and for other people. And it usually comes with some desperation and some snobby attitudes. And the snobby attitudes are underlying a lot of fear in that. So I think the more we get to know ourselves, the more that we're able to just see consciousness as an active awareness exercise, rather than this whole I'm really conscious, I'm very awake, I'm aware, I'm conscious. Well, yeah, okay, cool, be conscious. Yet also understand that all of us at any given time are going to experience positions of not being as aware as we could. And that doesn't make you a jerk and it doesn't make you a joke. It's nothing to be shamed over. I'm really kind of getting to the end of my rope, 20 some odd years in this field of metaphysics, with this idea that there is some sort of litmus of perfection that we're supposed to be hitting. I mean, we should be trying the best we can to be great human beings, mostly for ourselves, but also for others in society. Yet there is this weird pretense, again, pretentia, this weird pretense out there that, if we're not hitting the mark and trying to refine ourselves constantly, we're missing something. And honestly, that's actually a form of pretentiousness right there, because we're not supposed to chronically be in this diagnostic phase of finding out what's wrong with me and fixing it and finding out what's wrong with me and fixing it. That, again, is its own form of pretentia. Okay, that allows that person to say, look at me, I'm constantly bettering myself. I don't want to look at you. Just be better. Okay, be chill. Be fine. So we can actually, just do the best we can to be the best people we are, without going into that heightened state of pretensia. And, this gets really challenging, I think, for a lot of people, because when we talk about consciousness and the consciousness of connection, it's an active awareness in how we can participate not only with ourselves, but with others. And especially, maybe I just noticed this, you guys. Maybe I notice it more because I'm in my mid-50s now, right? And a lot of people in my age group, we start to get a little bit tired and we're working hard. And many of us realize, oh my God, there's really no retirement on the horizon. Suffer, Pope, as Judy Tenuta used to say back in the 80s. However, we realize that, we're really to a point where we have less energy to expend in proving ourselves to the world. And we really shouldn't have to prove ourselves to the world, but we do live in the world. And until the world catches up, well, here we are, right? So when we're talking about the consciousness of connection, we're talking about making a really concerted effort to make sure that we're making an effort to reach out to people, to organizations, to family, to friends. It's such a weird thing, right? This whole preoccupation with AI. I'm seeing all of this fascinating advertising on social media. And it's all about AI doing everything for everybody, from writing your emails to composing your song lyrics to writing your music for you, to writing your screenplay for you. I mean, it's hilarious. And they're calling it an AI assistant. Now, this gets weird because we are never going to create a computer program that can actually, I shouldn't say never, but not probably in the next 50 years. We're not going to be able to create a computer program that factors in context. When I was in Paris, it was really interesting because I don't speak French, right? I don't speak French. And reading French is difficult if you're not familiar with the language. My wife speaks a little French. My daughter speaks a little French. I do not speak any French. So in essence, when we're referring to understanding context, it was fascinating to watch the French people speak English, because they're just speaking English. Many French people know English, which is pretty extraordinary. Yet we had an issue with losing our tickets to the Eiffel Tower. And they were supposed to come in the email, and it got really confusing and really strange. So my wife goes up and asks the guy about it. And the guy is just trying to say, hey, listen, you should have received an autoresponder. If you go through and read your emails, there's probably a link to that. Yet the context of his comment, of course, and English not being his first language, this gentleman sounded just really dogmatic. That in the French culture, the French are just more direct. They don't pussyfoot around. They're not mealying around, worrying about hurting everybody's feelings. They're just kind of like, blah, this is the way it is. It's just the way it is. So this guy says to my wife, he says, well, you need to read. You need to read your email. And she got this look on her face. And I'm like, it's a context thing, right? And the fact is she'd read the email. We just basically screwed up and put the tickets in the wrong place. But the bottom line is AI is never going to understand context, at least in the near future, because one must teach context. And there are so many nuances to context that it would take 1,000,000 years to compile all the nuances. And what would take precedent in the computer program's ability to choose which piece of context takes precedence. Because if you think about how a computer program works, it literally is factoring in data. And the human brain can factor data at an extraordinarily fast rate. Yet where we decide context is really in how something feels. We'll feel it out. And until we can teach a machine to feel, then we've got a communication hiccup with AI. Just like when we went to France and we had a communication hiccup in understanding what we needed and what they were trying to get across. So there is a profound, okay, let me back up. This angel's talking here. I'm trying to follow this. So when we're talking about the conscious effort of connection, we must make an effort to reach out to someone else. And in a time frame where we're being told that the machine will do it for us, that really does begin to unexercise a communication muscle that's very important for all of us to have. And this communication muscle, I've seen anyway, has really it's been losing its oomph as far as I can tell. And a lot of the oomph it's been losing has been because we text and we message through Facebook or Instagram or whatever you're messaging through. And we don't speak to one another very often. Not really. Not anymore. Not unless somebody lives under your direct roof. So when we talk about the consciousness of connecting or connection, we really are talking about the awareness of how to connect. And it's important to remember that it must be intentional. We must be intentional in connecting with one another. And look, I get it. A lot of us are oversaturated. A lot of us are tired. We are stretched in 1,000,000 different directions. There is way too much disturbance in our atmosphere that is electromagnetic. And yes, that does affect the brain, you guys. I'm so tired of people saying, well, it doesn't matter how much signal we have in the atmosphere. Yeah, it does. You guys, we have an electromagnetic organ in our skull. Okay? I mean, the Geneva Convention outlawed electromagnetic weaponry because it messes with your head. Yeah, it matters how much stuff we're beaming around in the air. And no, I'm not trying to be a weirdo conspiratist. It's, 5G is going to make you grow a tail. I'm not going there. Yet we do have so much that is agitating our ability for our brain to create the proper chemicals to be able to stabilize us in a non-depressive or non-manic way, that when we are adding on all of this frictional stuff through the air, it becomes really tough. And I'm talking transmissions. There are certain millimeter wavelengths that have been proven to cause cancer. That was the original high millimeter bandwidths that the 5G towers were emitting, and they were placing those on firehouses, police stations, and the firemen and policemen were reporting brain cancers and all sorts of things. You could actually read about that online at one time from about 2016 to about 2019, 2018. And then a lot of those articles just disappeared. And that's not conspiracy. It just actually happened because I read those articles online and they were legitimate news sources. They weren't made up news sources about these firefighters and policemen. And now you can really only find a few of them. That was in relation to high millimeter wavelength 5G towers. Well, you'll notice a lot of the 5G towers have now switched to medium band millimeter wavelengths, and that makes a big difference. So there you go. So anyway, when we're talking about the consciousness of connection, we're talking also about the intention of connection and how important that is and the context of connection. And a lot of times when we're talking about connecting with one another, there is a really interesting emotionality that goes with that. That's like, God, I don't want the responsibility of that. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, oh God, I want to call Bob, but I don't want to get into a giant discussion about all these things and, I just can't and blah. So really defining our boundaries in communication is really important. And it's not that Bob might be a great guy. Maybe Bob is so excited to talk with us, he just wants to tell us all the things. I tend to be that person. I tend to want to tell people all the things. So if you're dealing with somebody like me and you're on the phone with somebody like me, then being able to say, you know what, I only have a few minutes. Here's the deal, blah, blah, blah. And if Bob or me keeps on talking, saying, oh my God, you know what, that's great. I'd love to catch up with you more, but I seriously have got to run. But thank you. Love you. Got to go. Bye. I think especially for women, it's really, really hard for us to cut people off communication-wise. It's really hard, especially if we've got our friends who are our more ADHD friends who are ping-ponging all over the place and forgot a minute and a half ago that we said we had to go. And then, I know a lot of people who take it really personally that they're having to turn around and say, look, I already told you I have to get off the phone. How come I have to keep telling you I have to get off the phone? Because, my darling, it's not all about you. It never has been, and it never will be. It's okay. You're fine. So if we understand that we are all doing the best we can, gang, in where we're at, and especially for my ladies listening out there, ladies, if you are listening, it is hard for us to cut people off because we get cut off a lot. It's a really interesting sociological outlay to watch people in an airport, you guys. So we come back from Paris and we fly into Salt Lake City, and our plane is an hour late because getting to the airport, to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, took time because there are protests in Paris right now. People are unhappy about them moving up the year of retirement and pensions being moved back. So there's a lot of protests. And the protesters shut the metro down, the subways, the trains. So we were going to take the train to Charles de Gaulle, right? And I was not really versed on all these metros and trains. My wife has used them before. She used to live in Paris for a while. So, there's, I was kind of the newbie on the block with all this European transportation. So we get on the train and we basically have to get off at a certain point because the guy gets on in French and says, hey, guess what? We're having issues. The train stopped running. It's electrical issues. Well, then we get out and we read the display and it turns out there's security issues because they're shutting the trains down because there's a lot of protests. So we're trying to figure out how to get to the airport. And it's an hour. We're an hour late getting there, which is not good. Thank God our flight was an hour late leaving, so it all matched up. We get into Salt Lake City, and now our connection time is shorter, right? And if you've ever traveled abroad and you check a bag, then what you got to do is you got to go through customs, which is a big-ass line, and then you got to go and get your bag from a belt, go through customs, and then you've got to check your bag in again, and then you've got to go through TSA all over again in the United States and find your plane and all these things. We had like an hour to do all this. And by the grace of the goodness of the universe and the God above, we made it. However, while we were waiting in customs, there's this giant line. It is massive. There had to be probably 600 people crushed in to one of those back and forth rope lines like at Disneyland, except there's nobody awesome dressed like a stormtrooper making the wait to get on the Star Wars ride better. Okay, it's just a bunch of cranky people who are all jet lagged in this giant line. So I'm listening and I am super tired, right? We've been traveling for like 12 hours and I'm just chilling out and I'm listening. And I'm listening to this pattern of communication that is in this line. Now, I've been listening to people speak French for an entire week. And regrettably, it's a beautiful language. It's so gorgeous. I don't understand really any of it except for merci beaucoup and bonjour. That's about it. Okay, merci. I understand those things. Three things I get. So I'm listening in this line in Salt Lake City in this giant bastion of impatient, tired people. And there are family groups. And most of the people that I'm seeing traveling, they were probably my age, I'd say maybe in their 50s. A lot of opposite gendered couples and their 20-something children. And I'm behind a couple of these groups. And the wife would start to say something, or who I'm assuming was the wife. They had matching wedding bands, so I made that assumption. And she would start to say, this one lady ahead of me was saying, oh, wow, well, it looks like there are two agents here for this entire line. And she doesn't even get her sentence out. That's as far as she gets. Well, her husband jumps in. And he just cuts her right off. He's like, there's three. There's one right over there. I don't know why you can't see that there's one right over there. You don't have to make things worse by sitting here talking about things that you don't even know about and making it sound like a bigger deal. And this guy is like, I kind of didn't really get the term mansplaining until I stood behind this man. And, he was a Caucasian male, probably in his mid-50s, just going on and on and on after cutting this woman off about kind of how stupid she was because she didn't see this border agent. Well, where she was standing, he was blocked by a pillar, okay? So her husband was standing a good 12 feet in front of her, and he's pointing at this guy like she's this total idiot. And she looked at him like she's used to this, I guess. And she looked at him and she's like, I can't see where you're looking. And instead of him going, oh, God, I'm sorry for acting like such a complete and total a-hole, and going on and on and on and on and on and on and on about what a stupid person you are. Wow, I really apologize for that. Instead, he starts preaching to her about her location. Well, if you'd get around and move around a little bit, you'd see that there's a whole bunch of people out here that you can't see and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Oh my God. And so I proceed to hear very similar conversations all throughout this entire line, where women will start to say something and the guy would just jump right in, shut her down, shut her up, preach to her about how stupid she was, talk about how he was right about his thing, and then get corrected because he's missing a piece of the conversation because he cut her off, right? You guys, I swear to God, I was thinking, I'm like, wow, I'll never see any of these people again. I wonder what would happen if I crawled up on my suitcase and I made a giant announcement to this entire room of people. And I said to all of the Caucasian males over the age of 45, I would like to announce that if the traveling partner that you are with happens to say something, please wait until the end of their sentence before ensuing into the subsequent diatribe at the top of your lungs that we all have to listen to that's ridiculous. Could you just wait till your traveling partner finishes their sentence? And then you can add your opinion in there. You guys, I'm not kidding. I'd never seen anything like it. And I thought, wow. And it's really, I put the blame on the female partners as far as that continued behavior goes. Because when these ladies would get cut off and get mansplained, they would just kind of look the other way and just put up with it. Man, had that been me, I'd be like, you shut your pie hole, buddy. I'm not done talking yet. And I don't need your exposition on a bunch of crap I haven't talked about. So hold it. Here's my sentence. Now what do you have to say? But maybe this is why, I don't know, maybe it's why God made me gay. Gentlemen, God spared you all from my Italian ass. There you go. Look at that. Look at that compassionate God out there. Anyway, when we're talking about connection, you guys, and gentlemen, in fairness, I have seen some women walk right over the top of their gentleman in a conversation, shut them up, not let them get a word in edgewise, and manically tap dance right over the top of you guys. And that's not cool either. So ladies, don't be those girls. Come on, gross. Don't be that. Okay. Had to balance it out there. So anyway, the point I'm making is if you're a human or a hybrid, I'm not going to discriminate here, and you find it that it's a hard time you have a hard time in setting boundaries in communication, work on that for yourself, because we really should be making an active choice to at least connect with folks in some way, even if it's a text that says, hey, I'm very intentionally thinking about you today. I hope you have a terrific day. That's awesome. I would really challenge and encourage all of us to call someone that maybe you don't talk to every single day, that maybe you text a lot with, even if it's a 5-minute phone call, even if you don't trust yourself to stay on the phone for 5 minutes, and keep calling people till somebody picks up, because a lot of times people let things roll to voicemail because they are very, very tired and they are overwhelmed with everything. It's an insane thing. So honestly, just make yourself call somebody. Just force yourself. Even just to say, hey, you know what? I know this is super random. I literally have 5 minutes. Watch your clock. If you're an overtalker like I am, I'm an overtalker. And just say, I was just literally calling to tell you I love you. That is it. That is it. And I hope you're doing well. And, they might talk a little, you might talk a little, and then, cut yourself off. And just say, okay, you know what? I tell you what, I got to go. I sincerely got to go. Let's talk later. I hope you have a great day. I love you. Bye. So the consciousness in connection and having conscious connection with others is about making the intention and following up on the intention to actually connect, because it's getting to the point in society where we're losing that ability. And we have younger generations. There's a lot of studies on this. It's really fascinating, actually, how a lot of our younger generations who rely heavily on texting really struggle in verbal communication with one another. And they really, really, really struggle, Gen Z especially, lots of studies, you can Google this one, with expressing their needs. Because if you have any sort of inflection, you're being aggressive. If you have any sort of needs, or you're saying, hey, let's do this to the group, you're bossing people around. There is a lack of context there, because a lot of our communication now is digital. So if somebody gets really excited and says, you guys, I really, really, really want to go to the skate park or whatever, that can be seen as trying to overrule the feelings of others, because we've lost our context for excitement. Can you believe that? We're losing our context for excitement. Dead serious. So when people talk about AI and AI is going to do all these fabulous things for us, I just laugh. I'm like, is it though? Is it really? Because I don't think it really is. I don't think AI is going to do all these incredible things that people think it's going to do. I think it's going to find the easy rhyme in your song lyrics. I think it's going to find the pat, hey there, really great to talk to you, and writing your emails. I mean, what is the point of trying to run your own small business or hire others to help you if your own energetic fingerprint is nowhere to be found in all of your materials? That's just weird, right? So conscious connection is also not just about connecting with other people. It's about conscious connecting with ourself. It's with ourself. How many of us do not take the time for ourselves, and we give away our time to everybody else? And that's especially poignant if you're raised as a female. That is going to be expected of you to give away your life, your time, everything. And if you don't give it all away, you get guilted or you get angry, or, the old world would have a masculine partner getting upset that you didn't give away enough of yourself. If you didn't care enough. It's just crazy. And there's a lot of guys that I've talked to who are like, God, I really wish my wife would go do more stuff for herself. She's miserable and she holds me responsible, and I can't make her go get a massage. I don't care if she gets a massage. So guys, I hear you. Women, we feel guilty. We guilt ourselves if we want to do something for ourselves. Conscious connection is also making the time to connect with yourself. And also girls, ladies, being able to voice your need for alone time. Let me use my fabulous bride, Rebecca Douglas, as example. I was raised Italian. We are in each other's business all the time. We're hanging out, we're talking, what's up, what are you doing, what's going on, blah, blah. And that's our happy spot. We're happy to do that. That's not like, oh my God, I have to be around all these people that I can't stand. No, that makes us happy. And once in a while, I've got to have my me time, or just the things I'm doing to just do my stuff. And I do that in the daytime. Rebecca goes to work. I have a lot that I do around the house when it's just me. That's a big thing. I've got my own pace at doing things. I've got my own way of doing things. Yet my spouse is a huge introvert. pray for her. She's married to me. So she's a huge introvert. And she's like, occasionally she'll be like, I love you. I'm going to finish reading my book. And I'm like, oh, of course. Like I'll see her reading. And obviously when somebody's reading, you don't want to interrupt them, right? But then something will come up and I'll be like, blah. And she's like, I'm going to finish doing this. So it's okay to ask for the time you need, ladies and gentlemen. And guys, men get such a bad rap because guys oftentimes, at least in the old world, women just rode their men like a 2-day pony, and not in the fun way, girls. Like in the, are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? The honey-do list. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Because they perceived their male partner as being more scattered or in the moment, and they felt like they needed to micromanage that person, which nobody likes that, girls. Don't do that. Gross. Not unless your partner's asking you to micromanage them. Don't do that. Nobody likes that. And humans, do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to mow the damn lawn. Don't not mow the lawn, and then that puts your partner in a position to have to say, hey, did you mow the lawn? And then you both feel weird. So just do what you say you're going to do, and everybody will be off everybody's butt. It'll be magical. Anyway, we have a lot of gentlemen who in the old world wouldn't let their spouses know what they were doing because it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. Remember that whole thing? So the guys would just disappear in the old world, would disappear off to the bar for however knows how long. And then their wives are all mad when they get home. Instead of just saying, hey, tonight I'm going to stop by with the guys and we're going to have a few drinks and we'll be home. Or is there anything you need me to do before tomorrow night so I can go out with the guys? Like, just checking in and letting people know what's going on and having a little bit of time to yourself and letting your family know that that's what you're doing is normal communication. That is conscious connection with others. The whole I'm not going to talk about what I'm doing. I can't tell you what I'm doing. That's a lot of fear-based stuff. A lot of people feel like they're going to get told no. And quite frankly, if you need to go for a walk all by yourself and your spouse says, no, you can't do that. I mean, unless there's a tornado or they need immediate help with something in that exact moment. That's weird. You might want to consider why that person is being that controlling. Yeah, just being able to say, no, I have a flow. I have a thing I do for myself in a day. And this is what I need. And this is what I'm going to do. So spending time with yourself and being intentional about spending time with yourself is very important. It's very important. And that might mean going out into nature. That might mean working out. That might mean swimming, but one person's regimen is not going to be the same for all people. One person's regimen is not going to be the same for all people. So whatever your regimen is in connecting with yourself, just be cool about doing it. And be gracious with others around you who need something different than you need. And I noticed that with a lot of married couples. I noticed that a lot of folks really struggle in the area of allowing their spouse what it is that is good for them. And then you've got a lot of resentment that starts up and it just gets crazy. So being able to just really speak about what your needs are. And if you have a spouse that's flipping out about what you need, get to the bottom of why that's happening. Say, you know what, this is really interesting. I just need to take a walk in the mornings by myself. I'm very curious as to why that's disturbing for you. And if that person turns around and says something like, well, I just feel like you're not spending any time with me, and saying, well, we've got all this time after work. My morning time is when I really set myself up for the rest of my day, and I just need to get my head on straight. And if somebody's really feeling insecure, maybe evaluate other areas of communication in that relationship. Maybe that person needs to lighten up, or maybe we're just not speaking and connecting as much as we can, and we're being overly self-involved or selfish in what we're doing. So balance is really important, yet speaking up for our needs is right up there on how we're going to be able to make sure that we've got that conscious connection with self. And it sounds easier than it is, quite honestly. It sounds much easier than it is, but it's very important that we do it. So with the conscious connection with self, conscious connection with your pets too. When I was in Paris, all these people walking their doggies and eateries there had very different laws there. It was the cutest thing I'd ever seen, all these babies hanging out with their people. And so making conscious connection to those around us who depend on us. You know, connection with people, even connection with beings, dogs, connection with anything, even ourself, can seem like an obligation. And I realize that many of us are feeling very burdened with the amount of obligation we already have. God knows my clients, a lot of you guys, oh my Lord, are just so buried underneath of a task list that is extraordinary. I get it. I mean, I'm right now, as we speak, well, not as we speak, because I'm talking to you guys, but right now in my life, I am working to expand my own team of people that help me work on things on a regular basis, because there's things I need to do, and I can't do these things if I don't have a team of folks that are dealing with certain other things. And I have people who will weigh in and help me here and there, and that's super cool. Yet I really do need more of a dedicated team in certain areas so I can focus on things like channeling and writing and doing what I do well. And I mean, of course, anybody who owns their small business can say that there's always little piddly stuff you have to do. Yet being able to do that, I have to consciously connect to what my needs are, and I have to be very clear in communicating those needs with somebody else. Straight out. So the, conscious connection is big. And there is a responsibility to having a partnership. There is a responsibility to being married. There is a responsibility to owning pets. We don't get to just do what we want to do all the time. And yes, that sometimes means if I'm reading a book and my spouse really needs to talk, it means putting that book down so I can actually speak with my wife about what's bothering her if I read books. But that's just an example, okay? So I would love to read for fun. I would love to have enough time to read for fun. What a thought that would be. So again, making that conscious connection with my own time, with my own needs, to be able to talk with the team about what I need, okay? That's an example. With your pets, with your plants, with nature. We need to have a conscious connection. And I do mean need. It is a need. Even if you don't think you like nature, you still need nature, ladies and gentlemen, and all in between. Hybrid beings and humans, off-worlders and elementals, we have in us, if you're walking around in a human body, an operating system that depends, and I do mean depends, on the vibration of the planet. And we have yet to send people into space for an elongated stretch of time. And if we're going to do that, and I would love to work on the team that does this. Wouldn't that be so exciting, you guys? Wow. But if we're going to do that, we must create a way for our brains to be stimulated by a Schumann resonance. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose our marbles in space because we key into the earth, right? So conscious connection is about so many things, everybody. It's about so many things. And I think the most important thing that we could focus on here is conscious connection with being part of our life. One of the things, a lot of the questions I get right now, you guys, are about the world. Like, is there going to be World War III? Is Putin going to freak out and drop nukes on everything? I mean, this gets really heavy, right? Because we're wondering what's going to happen in our future. Should we even bother? I had a client the other day ask me if they should even bother to save for retirement. I mean, seriously, this poor individual was so undone, gang. They asked me, should I even save for retirement? Or is there any point to this? Are we even going to be here anymore? And the answer is yes, please save your money. Putin's a wacko, but he's going to probably try to start World War III. He won't be successful. We're going to have some interruption with their off-worlders. But that's a podcast for another time. There's a cliffhanger for you. So, gang, when we talk conscious connection, what we're really talking about is making an effort to be present, right? And I know, this gets really old. There's a lot of metaphysical stuff out there going, I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to just be whatever. Yet consciousness as we know it is our participation exercise. So as we look at the United States, right, and we look at a lot of the politics of the United States, what we end up seeing is a pretty fractured system because part of the connected consciousness is to that of great negativity and fear and what we don't have, okay? And part of the collective consciousness is to that which we do have. So we're kind of connected in these two different areas, and never the twain shall meet, because if you're a person on the right, you're going to view a person on the left as being fearful and trying to make everybody this uniform woke thing that speaks in the same way that they do and blah, 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 blah. If you're a person on the left, you're going to look at the right and say, oh my gosh, you're trying to take my healthcare rights away. You're trying to take women's rights away. You're trying to make me in your image. So both of these polarized political sides play on the human fear of being standardized and having our uniqueness taken away from us. Like we literally have this piece of ourselves that is terrified, guys, that we're going to have our individuality taken away. We are scared crapless of that. And both of the political parties in the United States leverage that fear. And I must say, you know, if I were to objectively look at the political system in the United States, the right does seem to be really working hard to limit people's choices, which is weird. Like they're supposed to be the side that's all about, constitutional freedoms and American freedoms, unless you're a woman and you want an abortion and you want this and you want that and you want to do, if you want to remove your breasts and you want to remove your penis because you feel like a woman, no, you can't do that. But, let's all be free. Like when I look at this, just from a strategic standpoint, if I were to take any of my own personal opinions out, it gets weird, right? Because the consciousness there is of control. So I will look at that and say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to raise my hand, and person who believes this on the right, and I know a lot of people, you guys, who vote Republican, who consider themselves fiscal conservatives, and they could care less if you're a trans person. They could care less who you're marrying. They could care less if you have an abortion. They just don't want to be overtaxed. That's what's called a traditional conservative, right? But I'm talking about the group out there that's really leveraging fear as a consciousness, as a tool for fundraising. It's a thing. So, I'm raising my hand here going, I have a question. If you're all about freedom, and why do you care if I remove my breasts and take off my penis and do all the things that I need to do for my own self? Why do you care if you're for freedom? And the bottom line is, I don't think those people who rally against trans rights and rally against reproductive rights, I really don't believe they care about any of it. I don't. I think what they care about is getting elected and getting their free health care and making sure that they have this cushy job with lots and lots of lobbyist perks. I'm pretty sure they're in it for the money and the power. And I don't think any of them care who's doing what. Yet the horrible part about that type of conscious greed is that it costs women rights. It costs our trans community rights. Just because somebody wants free healthcare from the government. I mean, that is a really, really, really steep karmic price to pay. On the other side, you guys. Wow. I have yet to see. I'm waiting. I'm a left-leaning voter, you guys. However, I do believe that we all need to work hard. I do believe that we all need to implement our purpose in the world. I believe that we all need to be pushing for a better system. And I'm waiting for the left. I'm waiting to see where the consciousness would start to take away rights from people as generated from the left. Like I'm not really seeing any legislation coming out from the left that would say, all people who are Christian have to register for something. Or, I see some gun stuff, but they're not saying let's take all the guns away. They're saying let's not let certain guns be out there that kill lots of people. So I'm still not seeing an equivocal legislation on the left that would affect the rights of people as I'm seeing on the right. And I think the reason for that is, again, electability. President Biden recently came out in favor, or I don't want to say in favor of, yet he did not overrule. Is it called the Willow Project in Alaska? That big oil project up there that's crazy and is going to just wipe out a ton of wetlands and, reproductive lands for the polar bears and all the things. I guess it went on his desk. I don't know enough about it to talk intelligently, honestly, about it. However, my daughter, who prefers to be called a kid, she doesn't really relate with being called daughter. Don't call me daughter, not fit to. That's what that makes me think of every time. Anyway, so that was my Eddie Vedder. There you go. So I think about my kid who was really, really fired up about this because of the planetary applications. And we're talking consciousness here, okay? This has a point. Stay with me here. So this goes to President Biden. President Biden, of course, was a huge stumper in terms of, environment and stuff. He was huge on the environment. So he gets out there and he's like, okay, let's make the world not go to hell in climate crisis. Well, he, I guess, approves or doesn't override, or I don't really know the ramifications. He might not have been able to override this thing that's going on in Alaska. That might have been up to the state of Alaska. I really don't know. But there was a lot of pressure put on him to shut this Willow Project thing down. And maybe he had the potential to, but again, please research this. Anyway, he didn't do it. And so now he's got all these Democrats who are like, dude, you were the guy saying, let's save the planet. And you just rubber stamped this massive oil drilling project that's in Alaska. And again, my caveat is perhaps he had no say. But I don't know. It was played out by the media that he was able to say no to this thing or whatever. So we're talking about electability, right? So here's Biden. He just did this thing not too long ago. And that is definitely going to affect his electability coming up. Because, again, the same people on the right who are stumping against the trans community in the United States and against women's rights, they're stumping to grab an electorate so they can keep their job, you guys. I legitimately do not believe that a majority of those folks on the right who scream and yell about trans rights and women's rights and gay things and blah, and they want to take it all away, when I look at them psychically, they kind of as humans could care less. They're just so freaking greedy. They'd rather destroy people's lives to have a job for 2 years that will give them health care for the rest of their life. Did you know that? It's a true story. If you serve in the Senate or you serve in the House of Representatives in the United States of America, one or both of those houses, and I encourage you to Google this because I think as an American public, we probably should be a little more aware of what our government's doing. But I would encourage you to Google this. If you serve in either one of those forms of government, you receive health care for the rest of your life, even after your term has expired. I am not kidding. So there's a reason that folks are trying to keep those jobs. There's a reason that those folks are trying to stay with the $100,000 and $1 million lobbyist perks. And the fact that their consciousness would come in and wipe out another person's quality of life just because of their greed, that one, ooh, I'd hate to be the person at the end of the karma train on that one. That's going to be kind of hard to explain. That would go something like this. So say I'm one of those legislators on the far right, and I really don't care who's trans, and I really don't care who's having an abortion. I'm some guy. I'm hoping, as a matter of fact, my mistress does have an abortion, but we're just going to act like we don't like abortions. And I'm going to say all the words I need to say to get elected. And I keep doing this, and I keep pushing legislation, and I keep pushing hysteria. And pretty soon, trans people in my state are being hunted and killed, and women are having horrible experiences and dying from septic home abortions. And I'm sitting pretty in my Washington, D.C. station, getting all of my perks and whatnot, and I have a heart attack and die. I can't help but think that that scenario in the afterlife would go something like this.
Well, hey there. Just where the heck am I? This is awfully cloudy and strange looking, and people look way too peaceful to be Washington, D.C.
You're on the outskirts of heaven, sir.
Oh my God, you mean I've died?
That's generally how people get here, yes.
Well, let's start the party. Open up those pearly gates. Here comes Poppy.
Not so fast, sir. We have some review to do here. It looks like you sponsored legislation that caused 255 deaths of trans people in the United States of America.
Oh, that's fake news. Fake news.
Not so fake. I checked them in myself.
Listen, that wasn't my fault. Okay, I didn't really care if they were trans or trainee or tranny or whatever it's called. I just was doing my job.
I don't think you were doing your job, sir. You see right here, the oath you took, you are diametrically opposed to helping people in actual life.
What are you talking about? I am a card-carrying, patriotic American.
Sir, you were a senator, a U.S. senator, and it says right here, let's review your oath, shall we?
I know
it says, and I quote, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Who?
God, sir. It says here you swore to God that you would protect people to the Constitution, which means you uphold people's rights, which you really did not.
I did.
In fact,
too.
I'm seeing a docket here that you took $1.7 million from a religious organization that claimed to speak for the Jesus Christ,
did speak for
who then actually actively hated people.
Weirdo.
Whatever you want to call him, I see you call him many names, and most of them are quite insulting. Sir, the biggest issue here is I see that you have 1,119 counts of hypocrisy.
What?
There is 665,000 counts of untruth.
That is
right
just
over here,
called,
sir. Oh dear.
We call it
this
spin.
one alone. Taking the Lord's name in vain endlessly.
Everybody does that.
Count,
God
actually.
damn it, you're
I do
intense.
see someone retired after that, trying to keep track of you.
Well, for God's sakes, what kind of snowflake wieners are you up here?
Sir, you caused an angel to have a nervous breakdown and retire. Perhaps you do not see the gravity of that at this time.
Just do your job and quit your bitchin', saucy.
That sounds like a plan, sir. I am hereby denying you access to the kingdom of heaven, eternal joy, eternal peace, eternal rest, and of course the complimentary endless margarita bar.
Wait a minute, you can't do that. I believe in the Christ Jesus. He is my Lord and Savior.
No, sir, it says right here, the almighty dollar is your Lord and Savior. In fact, you had a man killed because he mishandled your portfolio. That happened in 1987.
I claim a statute of limitations.
That's not a thing here, sir.
But wait a minute, I went to church every Sunday. I made sure to tweet about it.
We know. Thank you very much for your visitation to the outside of heaven. Have a very nice trip downstairs.
Hey, what are you doing? I want to go in there. I want to go with the nice people.
That would have required you being one, sir. Thank you so much for visiting the outskirts of the kingdom of heaven. We hope you have a wonderful trip downstairs and try again for entry next life. Okay, well, I'm actually told that they're quite a bit more compassionate than that upstairs, so to speak, but that's how it goes in my head all the time. And really, gang, you know, it's obviously not that black and white. Yet, when we spend a lifetime thinking that our actions do not affect other people, and that at some point, even the energetic repercussions of those actions aren't going to catch up to us, there is a significant amount of illusion in that. And when the angelic realm talks about being active participators with our own consciousness, it's really about deciding where we wish to put our energies and how we're going to put those energies out into the universe. So for us, a big major part of all of this is, it's hard sometimes to reach past our comfort zones and be conscious of connecting. Yet, this is what's being asked of us in this time frame. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's going to go down, you guys, and I don't think you need to be a psychic to understand that. We have all kinds of things rolling in here. Former President Trump is about ready to get his indictments handed to him. And of course, that's going to bring all kinds of crazies out of the woodwork and all his fans and people who feel like they need to consciously take action because they do feel like, for whatever reason, that he needs defending. So there's going to be all that. And when we're talking about consciously connecting to the masses, and at times those masses might be behaving in ways that we don't understand. Heck, you might be somebody listening right now who really believes that former President Trump is getting railroaded off, into some crazy deep state prison or something. Yet, if that is the belief system, then how do we consciously connect through that feeling of things going to hell in a handbasket? Or if you're someone who believes that former President Trump deserves to be indicted, how do we consciously connect through that belief system to not come down like a hammer or seem like we're gloating over the misdeeds or the misfortune of another? Because we can exact justice without waving our torches and pitchforks and cheering in the streets for someone else's karmic lesson to come to fruition. And I understand, gang, there's a lot of very frustrated people in the United States and abroad who have watched many things happen in this country, myself included, that have been pretty terrible. And people have not sat in a court for the things that they've done. And really, it's a time to be soberly sad about where we've come as a country, that we have to indict a former president and that individual was even allowed to get to the point that they got, that this is even happening. I mean, there should be some reflection here that how we as a society have co-authored this situation and it got this far. That is consciously connecting to all portions of the situation, not just the Schadenfreude, or how do you say that word? Schadenfreude? Yeah, I never can get that right. But the German word that means you're really happy for somebody else's misfortune, Schadenfreude, I don't even know. Anyway, there's ways that we can actually observe our own response in consciously connecting with something and making sure that we are not pouring gasoline on the energy fire. Because one of the biggest issues we're going to run into in conscious connection coming up in the rest of 2023, all the way through to 2030, is that pouring gasoline on the fire during this time frame is not the way to bring about change. It's not the way to bring about results. In fact, it will detour people, it will turn people off. And we're seeing this across the board in many ways. Extremism, again, as I was talking about at the end of 2022, talking about how extremism was on its way out. It really is. So when we're consciously connecting with our own emotions, and let me just use this as an example. If you are somebody who's really excited for former President Trump to go to prison or whatever, I'll just tell you this, spoiler alert, they're not going to slap him in an orange jumpsuit and send him to prison. That would be an enormous security risk. He may have consequences slapped on him, which include but are not limited to disallowing him to run for president again. And that's really what this indictment is going to be all about. Yet, if you are someone who's excited about the indictment, consciously connect to the portion of yourself that, why are you excited? Is it because you want to see somebody else suffer? Or is it because we really do need to have some checks and balances and we need to bring that bubble back to the middle because we're losing our sense of what we perceive as justice in the nation? Like, where is it coming from? And I'm not criticizing any reaction you would have. I mean, I would be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that wasn't going to say, well, good, he had it coming to him if and when, which is going to be a when, former President Trump is indicted. Yet I'm not going to rejoice in that indictment. I'm not going to pop a bunch of champagne and sing Ding Dong, the witch is dead in the streets, because this is a very sad day. It's a tremendously sad day that we've gotten to the place in the United States where white males with a lot of money and power can get away with anything. I mean, I don't see black males getting away with that. I don't see Latin males getting away with that. I don't see women getting away with that. So, it's a sad day when we've come to this place. And karmically, when we all get to the other side and we're all hanging out in the all-you-can-drink margarita bar in heaven, the complimentary one, and we all get a chance to rub elbows with Mr. Donald J. Trump. There's going to be a lot of congratulations to him for holding this character so diligently all the way through the plot line. So we could see the end of the movie. We could see the indictment. We could see that authoritarianism doesn't fly. We could see the violence that the indictment brings about. We could deal with the violence. I mean, this one singular person, gang. This one guy has really, really held the space for a ton of lessons for this country to the demise of his own health. I mean, if you really consciously connect to the spirit of Donald Trump, that poor guy is so full of anxiety. His health is tanking. His internal organs are tanking. He's probably put on 150 pounds since he got out of the presidency. I mean, this has been a really, really stressful time for this person. And I understand there's a lot of you going, tough crackers, look what he did to the United States. Well, yes. However, if you can imagine being the person that bore all those lessons for an entire country into this life, that's a pretty old soul. Now, I'm not saying I'm a big fan of former President Trump. I'm not actually, yet I do have a tremendous amount of compassion for the guy. That I can't imagine when I feel into this person's body that is breaking down on a regular basis and his mental capacity is breaking down. This is a person who's heading towards their late 70s. They're heading towards their 80s. And the ability when you get older to deal with anxiety and to deal with the kind of mental issues that Trump has had his whole life gets really challenging. So this guy right now is living out his own personal hell every minute of every day. Every minute of every day. The people he considers who betrayed him, worried that his kids are going to roll on him. Keep an eye on Ivanka there, Don. You're not exactly wrong. So, I mean, I understand. I'm not trying to plead a case for you guys to feel sorry for Donald Trump. I'm just simply saying when I personally consciously connect to that person, the amount of suffering that comes off of him is heinous. Like I have to disconnect because it's so terrible. So in conscious connecting, gang, it also allows us to see the other side of a coin that could really be perceived as pretty polarized without the connection. And it doesn't mean you have to change your opinion, and it doesn't mean that you have to change your values or your mores or any of it. It just gives us perspective. Because we're going to need perspective moving into this particular time frame. We're going to need perspective. And I mean, that's just going to be something that's big and necessary. So I would just tell you all that as we consciously connect with ourselves, with nature, with one another, with why we feel the way we feel, with our responses to what happens around us in the daily news and our daily world, remember that the kindness that you bring forward, appealing to your highest nature, this is not trying to be perfect or a Pollyanna or denying your feelings. Yet when it comes right down to it, if you have a choice, even if you must bring down the hammer on something in your life, bring it down in your highest nature. Appeal to that which is in you, that is your highest good for you and for others. And I'm not saying you should act in a way that's gross and saccharine and fake. Just remember that every action has a reaction. And if we consciously connect to that which is around us, our need to bludgeon, our need to chide, our need to pull things apart and pull people apart really does dissipate. Now, we still need to take some systems apart that are currently failing and replace them with something that's more attuned to where we're headed. But we got that under control, guys, as long as we lean into our better nature, as we consciously connect with the great mother that we walk on, with those around us, with our family, with our heart, our needs, and our life path, our angels, the elementals, the off-worlders, all of the beings around us. Consciously connect and make this world the realm that you would like to see. Because, I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to hang out in the all-you-can-drink margarita bar? I'll see you guys next podcast.